What's up, freaks? This is just me, and today we're taking a look at the best quad middle heads. So, the middle head of the quadriceps lies in between the sweep and the teardrop, and it's more in the upper part of the thigh than the lower part. Properly, it's called rectus femoris, and it unfortunately isn't in this image, but I think most of you already know where it's located. It's that kind of leaf-shaped muscle in the middle of the thigh. So with that out of the way, let's proceed. The middle head of the quad is indeed a very small muscle, and it's easily the least important out of the three heads that account for the quad, but these small details can surely make a difference, and when the mid head is nicely separated, it can catch your eye for sure. And I think it's interesting to look at this muscle group, so let's do just that. Let's get into it already. We're gonna do the entries in increasing order with the most impressive at the end, but don't forget this order is based on my biased opinion, even though I tried my best to keep it fair and square. I think this video is gonna be pretty unique because we're looking at a muscle that can't even be trained directly. It's not like you go one day and you're like, let's do squats for sweeps today, and the other day let's do squats targeting the middle heads. So it's just a little interesting. But there was a side note. Let's get into it. Our first entry is Dexter the Blade Jackson from the 2000s and 2010s. His squats were never the best of all time, not even close to that, but his mid heads look pretty good to me. Just a nice complement to his squats, I would say. Very nicely shaped, aesthetic, although very, very shortly formed, I guess. Sergio Oliva Jr. from the current era also has impressive middle heads on his squats, I find, especially compared to his sweeps. I mean, his teardrops look great, so especially compared to his sweeps. Very separated and cut. Look at the rectus femoris on this guy. Very good. Also, we have Michael Krizo, real name Michal Krzyżanek, I believe. He's from the current era, even though not from the IFBB Pro League. He's an IFBB Elite Pro, and he's got great quads overall. His mid heads look extremely separated, and they look pretty massive if you look closely, and very, very good overall. Here from the 90s and 20s, the King Ronnie Coleman has got much longer mid heads, not as separated and cut, but the groove in the mid head itself is very, very good. So even compared to his teardrops and impressive sweeps, his mid heads hold up and look very great. It's just a detail, but it's decently important if you ask me. And a prime example of this is Rafael Brando from the current era. He also has very long quads and super aesthetically shaped, and this is also partially because of the shape of his middle heads. It looks very good on his quads. His whole quads look very sliced and cut, and the middle heads, the way they're formed and shaped, they just look very good. So shout out to this set of quads. And next up is Flex Wheeler from the 90s, and also pretty impressive to me in his rectus femoris muscles. Again, great condition, so you can see some separation from the rest of the quad, and actually also he looks to have some mass, so especially for instance the pig on the left, while still maintaining aesthetics as usual. His middle head of the quad looks very, very big, very standout on the Sultan of Symmetry. Next up is 90s mass monster Paul Delat. Now, his middle heads of the quad are very far from being the most shredded and cut, but he makes up for it with his impressive level of mass that he's got in his massive thighs overall, so he deserves to be mentioned. And here we got another good set of quads on current competitor Sunni Chadhov, who has got top-notch sweeps and inner heads, but his middle heads don't lag behind if you ask me. They have a pretty shape and nice cuts in them. And the quad father, Tom Blass, also belongs on this list because when his quads were shredded, he had an unreal set for the 1980s. His sweeps and teardrops are definitely world class and would stack up great today, but so would the mid heads of his quads, which are well developed and supremely cut. He had great muscle bellies in his lower body, and the middle heads are just one example of that. They look well shaped, in my opinion. Here is a multiple time mistro from the 2000s, for the most part, Jay Cutler, known for insanely ripped quadriceps, and that is including his rectus femoris, which stuck up so well compared to the rest of his quad heads. Just great aesthetics in Jay's quads, and the middle head in particular, they definitely contribute to that. And nowadays 212 Pro, maybe switching back to classic physique. Keon Pierce, he has some pretty standout middle heads on his quads too, although he is not the most grainy or ripped competitor ever. He's got great muscle bellies, and it shows in his quad middle heads. He has enough definition to make a great impression as I see it. For example, in his ab and thigh, the middle head looks very nice. This is a competitor from the 2010s, Vito Abbaspar. He is also getting featured in this video for a reason that's unclear to myself. He's not very well known, but he had an immensely developed lower section, and the middle heads of his quadriceps are not the sharpest. In these pictures, at least, they are not, but his shape looks very good. I just find that the middle heads add an element of detail that some other bodybuilders might be missing. And this is another forgotten bodybuilder from the 20s. He's called Caprice Murray, and I talk about him every time in these quad featured videos. He's awesome, that's why. I mean, how many bodybuilders can beat this guy in the lower body? I would say not many. Anyway, briefly about his middle heads. They are very short, but they look very meaty, so a great bodybuilding talent overall, if you ask me. And here is a current guy who really impressed me, Andrew Jacked, who has barely even made his debut, and he hasn't even started his career properly, and he already has a super ripped physique. His middle quadriceps heads look to be almost the size of his teardrops, and even sweeps, which are crazy proportions, if you ask me. And it's not because the sweeps are so underdeveloped, so he definitely impresses me. And he can definitely improve on this package and look even better than this. So good luck to Andrew Jacked. And we also have the gift Phil Heath, 7-time Mistro, also fantastic middle heads of the quadriceps, not far off his outer head development, which is underrated in my opinion. A well-shaped and of course conditioned muscle group. We all know Phil was super complete. That's mostly why he won all those Olympias, right? So he even has these small muscle groups in check. And we have Nick the Mutant Walker, this young current bodybuilding star who did very well at the Olympia, has got potential to be Mistro in the future. Most people would probably say that. His quads remind me of Jay Cutler's a little, just like Nick. He had so much detail, although his quads were never the biggest. Anyway, next, mid heads just stuck up so well to his asymmetrical sweeps and good teardrops. He has good definition. Definitely you can see what I mean with the added details in his quads. And Hunter Brado, another youngster with potential a great separation between the middle heads and other parts of his quads. Also well shaped, so he deserves the spot here in my opinion too. And this nowadays 212 athlete, Austin Carr, not particularly a household name, but this guy's quads aren't far away from having a perfect shape and balance, at least as I see it. Don't they look awesome? So aesthetic. And also good separation and detail in his middle hats to go along with that awesome shape. But now look at the definition in another current competitor's quads, Lionel Bayakis. They're also super aesthetic, pleasing to look at, and they also pride themselves of having complete top to bottom detail, long and nice muscle bellies overall too. And here is Ben Pakulski, 2010s competitor, who had massive thighs, but look, his middle heads are not getting overwhelmed whatsoever, which is really impressive. He's got a very elongated shape, and his middle heads reach very low down, but I think that looks very good. The rectus femoris goes so well with the rest of his quads. I couldn't overlook Ben Pakulski. But now look at Momo Benaziza, a 90s bodybuilder with great quad development too. In particular, really thick and uniquely formed middle heads to them. In certain photo, the thickness combined with the crazy separated muscle just looks very incredible. Look at the photo on the left. Here, his middle head of the left quad just looks like it's gonna jump out of the picture. I think that's very, very helpful for the pose. And this is nowadays 212 athlete Noel Adami, and the shape of his quads is really unique as well, and maybe slightly odd, and so it goes for the middle heads in particular. They are certainly sort of eye-catching with that shape, and he doesn't have bad definition at all. I think his quads were once again very unique, and he has great detail and good size and thickness too. And this is the modern quadzilla, Nicholas Woollio. I hope I said that right, even though probably not. He also makes the list, and he finishes 5th, meaning we just got to the top 5. You can instantly note how short the middle heads of his quads are. It looks quite strange maybe, but not bad at all. The shape is not unaesthetic or anything, at least to my eyes. And my eyes definitely get occupied by the middle heads because they are pretty well defined and complement the quads real well. I think this is exactly what a standout middle head looks like on a quad. And here in 4th, Milos Sarchev from the 90s. He's got some great middle heads as well. He's got really good thickness and incredible shape to his quads. The middle heads just look crazy. I mean, the separation is great. Great look at the comparison to his sweeps and teardrops. He's got incredible quads, and once again in the ab and thigh pose on the left, the middle head of his quad looks like it might jump at you. And so it goes for my 3rd place finisher, Aaron Baker from the 90s, with hit middle heads, kind of dominating his quads a bit. Not that his sweeps or inner heads are bad, but the middle head of his quadriceps just look sort of unreal. He's got separation, thickness, and the shape as well as the development. Just super. Look at the photo in the middle. I think it says it all. Very well built middle heads. Next up is this 80s gentleman. In case you're not familiar with him, his name is Jeff King, nicknamed Neckzilla. But he had great thighs as well, especially for his time period, the 80s. And he had so thickly and densely developed quads. Look how much muscle he's got on his quads, and look how standout the middle head looks, especially in that photo on the right. It's almost hard to believe how someone's quads could look like that. Very good looking shape to them, I like that, and well separated from the surrounding quad heads. So, who could beat this guy? First place is gonna go to Chris Cormier. Beautifully formed middle heads on this physique. Maybe not as dense as some of the other guys placing lower, but he's no slouch, and the reason why he places first is mainly the actual size of his rectus femoris heads. They are the size of his teardrops and outer heads, which are not small either, so these are just some crazy proportions, really good, and he's got very impressive mid quads, defined and separated. You can see that in all three photos, probably the best in the middle. So, feel free to let me know down in the comment section below your thoughts on this video. Did you find it interesting or not even close? Do you think the rectus femoris are actually important for the quads, or are they just there and they don't really matter? I think they are not very important, but I still find it interesting once again. So I hope you agree with that. And I would also like to remind you of one thing. Don't forget to be generous to your friends. That's all for me. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to watch some best squad videos and also like and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your day.